The story of the doctor in the death ward. The asylum, the story of a doctor in the death ward. There are many types of hospitals, some specialize in cardiology, others in respiratory diseases, and so on. However, there is also a type of hospital known as a mental institution, or as some call it, the madhouse. In reality, strange and bizarre things often happen in these hospitals, and at times, they can be downright terrifying. Today, we bring you a horror story from a mental asylum, titled The Doctor in the Death Ward. We hope you enjoy that it captivates your imagination. The story of the doctor in the death ward. My name is Dr. Ahlam, and I work as a psychiatrist at a mental hospital in the city. I am well known for my ability to handle patients with compassion. I do not see them as insane, as many do, but rather as individuals suffering from illnesses who need care and attention, which may sometimes lead to their recovery. Because of my good reputation, I was transferred to another hospital in a neighboring city. This hospital was old and shrouded in unsettling rumors. My job was to supervise the staff and ensure that all medical protocols were being properly followed. During my first week, everything seemed fine. However, the inside of the hospital felt eerie. It consisted of 2 floors and a basement, which was divided into several wards. Among them was a notorious section called the Death Ward. It was given this name because most patients, or even doctors, who entered it never came out. What was even more terrifying was that those who vanished were never found again, not even their bodies. My working hours were from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. One day, a colleague of mine was absent, so I decided to cover her shift and work late. That night, I ended up staying at the hospital until 10 p.m. As I was about to leave, I heard a strange noise. I froze in fear because, at that hour, the hospital was nearly empty. No one was supposed to be there. I was in the basement, checking on a patient for my colleague, when I heard the noise again. I hid to see what was happening. Then, something unbelievable happened. I saw the hospital's former director, a man who had been dead for 15 years, walking toward the death ward. He was accompanied by several nurses, and they were dragging a bound patient who was screaming in terror. The place was completely empty except for them. I could not believe my eyes. As I tried to sneak out, one of the nurses spotted me and started chasing me. She grabbed my leg, but with great effort, I managed to break free and run out of the hospital. The next morning, I requested a week off due to the shock of what I had seen. When I returned to work, I told the current hospital director what I had witnessed, but he did not believe me. Later that day, as I sat in my office, a nurse approached me. "I need to tell you something about what happened to you last week," she said. I asked, "What is it? Tell me." She hesitated before saying, "One day, my daughter was with me at the hospital. She wandered into the death ward. When I ran after her, she turned to me, her eyes had turned completely white." Then the nurse's voice trembled as she continued, she screamed in a deep, terrifying voice, "You will never see me again." I fainted. When I woke up, my daughter was gone. To this day, I have no idea where she is. Hearing this terrified me, but it also awakened my curiosity. I had to uncover the mystery of the death ward. That night, I stayed in my office until 10 p.m. Then, I sneaked into the basement and hid. After about 10 minutes, I heard the same noises. I saw the former director again, accompanied by the same nurses. This time, the patient they were dragging was the missing daughter of the nurse. She had the same description, the same clothes. I watched as they entered the death ward. I knew I had to see what was inside. As soon as I stepped in, I froze in terror. The walls were covered in strange symbols and occult writings. Candles burned everywhere. I approached the girl. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Her eyes were completely white. She smiled at me. Then she let out a blood-curdling scream. I panicked and hid under a bed. A moment later, the former director and nurses entered the ward. Then suddenly, The bed I was hiding under shattered into pieces. I tried to run, but before I could escape, someone struck me on the head. Everything went black. When I regained consciousness, I found myself lying in front of the death ward, surrounded by my colleagues. They told me they had found me unconscious in the morning. I told them everything. No one believed me. Determined to prove what I saw, I started researching the nurses who had been with the former director that night. What I discovered shook me to my core. All of those nurses had died the same year as the hospital's former director. Then I investigated the nurse who told me about her missing daughter. And I discovered something even more terrifying. That nurse had been dead for 10 years. So who had I spoken to? I was labeled insane. The hospital's director believed I had been mentally affected by working with psychiatric patients. I was suspended from my job and permanently banned from entering the hospital. I lost my job, my reputation, and my future because of that hospital. But one day, I will return. Because I must uncover the truth behind the death ward. The school ghost story. Horror stories are a favorite for many, especially when they involve people or places where strange events occur beyond human comprehension. Cultures and countries may differ, but eerie locations and terrifying legends remain a part of every culture worldwide. Today, we bring you one of the most frightening and thrilling stories, a Korean horror tale titled The School Ghost. We hope you enjoy reading this story and that it captures your interest. The story takes place in a high school located in the South Korean capital, Seoul, known as Dong-a High School. This school was famous for being an elite institution attended only by wealthy students. No one outside the wealthy class was allowed to enroll. One day, a girl named Mina joined the school. She came from a rich family, but she was also a kind-hearted girl. At the same time, Mina was considered the most beautiful girl in the entire school. The boys were always chasing after her and trying to get her attention, which made the other girls extremely jealous. Mina was not particularly smart and often wished, if only I had an intelligent mind. One day, 3 girls at the school decided to get rid of Mina by luring her to an abandoned place and killing her. Their motive? A boy had left his girlfriend because of Mina. Their sinister plan was executed flawlessly. The 3 girls tricked Mina into going to an unfinished building next to the school and murdered her. However, the girl whose boyfriend had left her didn't stop there. She gruesomely gouged out Mina's eyes, nose, and mouth. Years later, rumors began to spread about Mina's ghost haunting the school. Her spirit would appear at night, filled with rage, searching for any living soul in the school to take revenge for her tragic death. As time passed, Dong-a High School transformed into an ordinary school open to students from different social backgrounds. Among the students were 4 friends who firmly believed that Mina's ghost was nothing more than a legend. To prove it, they decided to stay at the school overnight to uncover the truth. At first, they found nothing unusual, so they prepared to leave. Before heading home, one of the girls, Woo-ri, asked for a moment to go to the restroom and wash her face. While washing her face, she laughed and said, "I can't believe I actually thought there was a ghost in this school. How silly of me." As Woo-ri stepped out of the restroom, she froze in horror. Standing before her was a blood-soaked girl wearing a school uniform, with no nose, no mouth, and no eyes, yet she was smiling. Wuri was too terrified to scream. When she didn't return, her 3 friends went to check on her. What they found was horrifying. Wuri was lying on the floor, her eyes missing. The girls screamed in terror, but what made things worse was what they saw at the end of the hallway, Mina's bloodied figure, staring at them with her newly acquired eyes. Wuri's eyes. The 3 remaining girls tried to escape, but Mina's ghost caught Doohee and ripped off her nose. That left only Yumi and CRA, who quickly hid inside a classroom. After about an hour of silence, the 2 girls decided to make a run for it. However, the door was locked. Yumi smashed the window and said, "I'll go first. Follow right behind me so we can escape as fast as possible." CRA nodded. Yumi jumped out of the window but injured her leg upon landing. She turned back, waiting for CRA, but was met with a horrifying sight. CRA was lying lifeless on the ground, and above her stood Mina, grinning with satisfaction, now possessing a new mouth. Yumi tried to run toward the school gates, but she tripped and collapsed from the pain. As she faded into unconsciousness, she heard a girl's voice gently calling her, "Wake up, Yumi. Are you okay?" Opening her eyes, she saw a girl standing before her. "Who are you?" Yumi asked. "I'm in the same class as you. I fell asleep in the library and woke up when I heard you screaming." "Are you all right?" the girl replied. Terrified, Yumi stammered, "Mina's ghost appeared, she killed all my friends." The girl looked at Yumi and said calmly, "Actually, Mina's ghost has finally gotten what she wanted for so long." Yumi was shocked. "What do you mean? Who are you?" The girl smiled and said, "I am Mina, and all that remains is your intelligent mind, Yumi." The Mysterious Island Horror Story. They always spoke of the Black Sea as mysterious and terrifying, but I never imagined I would experience such a horrifying event myself. The ship I was working on vanished in the Black Sea last night. I was a mechanical engineer on board, fast asleep when the winds began to howl fiercely. The sound of the storm woke me up, but when I rushed to the deck, I found no one there. The sea was violently shaking, and a dreadful echo reverberated off the ship's walls. There was nothing I could do except scream for the crew, though my voice was drowned out by the raging winds. After a few hours, the ship drifted onto the shore of a remote island. The vessel had sustained severe damage from below and was at risk of sinking if we attempted to set sail without proper repairs. Although I had examined the navigational charts and was certain that no islands existed in this area, there, before my eyes, was an unknown island. Even more surprisingly, it was inhabited. The island's inhabitants stared at us strangely, their eyes gleaming red. Nothing about this place seemed safe. I also noticed that the white sands of the shore contained a type of poisonous fish, yet the locals consumed it without suffering any harm. It seemed they had developed immunity to the toxins. Some of the surviving crew members and I decided to avoid contact with the islanders and remain cautious. This island was uncharted, and its people had no known connection to the outside world. We knew nothing about them. We began assessing the ship's damage and working on repairs. For the first 3 days, everything was relatively calm. But then, things started to change. Strange noises echoed through the night, and we saw shadows moving around us. At first, we suspected the islanders and decided to investigate. Venturing deeper into the island's jungle, we stumbled upon an abandoned town. It didn't seem to belong to the people we had encountered on the shore. As we explored the deserted settlement, time passed quickly, and before we knew it, night had fallen. That's when we started seeing the shadows again, this time, everywhere. I heard footsteps approaching slowly. When I turned to see where they came from, there was nothing, no person, no animal, just eerie silence. Yet, the sound continued. A chilling sensation crept up my spine, as if something unseen was stalking me in the darkness. Fear took hold of me, and I realized there was nowhere to escape. Suddenly, a strange figure materialized in the shadows and rushed toward me at an unnatural speed. My body froze in terror. Just as it was about to reach me, it vanished into thin air. I wasn't sure what had just happened, but I was convinced that something truly unnatural existed on this island. I hurried back to the shore, where my remaining crewmates were gathered. They looked as frightened as I felt. They told me they, too, had felt an unseen presence following them through the jungle and had witnessed bizarre occurrences at night. Fear gripped us all. We worked frantically to complete the ship's repairs, making it as seaworthy as possible. However, as we worked, we noticed the islanders watching us, staring with unsettling, unfriendly expressions. A dreadful realization dawned upon us: something sinister was happening on this island, and waiting for rescue was not an option. We decided to set sail as soon as possible, but just as we prepared to leave, we found ourselves trapped. Strange phenomena escalated rapidly. Ominous sounds echoed from the jungle, and an overwhelming sense of being surrounded took hold of us. We had no idea what was happening, but panic spread among the crew. Then, out of nowhere, terrifying entities emerged from the water near our ship. These creatures resembled marine life, but they were grotesque and unnatural. At that moment, I felt as if everything on this island was against us: the islanders, the sea creatures, the very land itself. We were paralyzed with fear. Only the water separated us from our ship, but the monstrous beings were closing in. Their glowing red eyes stared at us, their bodies moving in ways no living thing should. The horror reached its peak. We screamed, but no help came. Then, suddenly, a deep, powerful sound echoed across the water. It was unlike anything we had ever heard, similar to a whale's call, but more profound. And then we saw it. A massive whale emerged from the depths, surrounding us as if shielding us from the horrifying creatures. Without hesitation, it began attacking the monstrous beings, crushing them one by one in a brutal battle. Within minutes, the unnatural creatures were gone. The water was still again. We wasted no time. Seizing our chance, we boarded the ship and set sail, leaving the cursed island behind. The terror we endured will never be forgotten. Upon returning home safely, we reported the island to the authorities. A team of scientists was dispatched to investigate. But when they arrived at the location we had marked, there was nothing. No island. Nothing at all. The terror I thought had ended came rushing back. Red-eyed people, abandoned villages, shadows and ghosts, strange voices, venomous fish, and monstrous sea creatures. And now, an entire island that had never existed. Could it all have been a hallucination? A dream? But how could multiple people share the same nightmare, experiencing identical horrors down to the smallest detail? And so, our story about the mysterious island comes to an end. Was it real, or just a collective illusion? Can the human mind create nightmares that feel this real? Or are there secrets lurking in the depths of the Black Sea that remain undiscovered? If you're a fan of horror and mystery stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. We have many thrilling and terrifying tales waiting for you. Are you ready for more horror? Thanks for watching.